Blink and you'd miss it. The Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896 holds the record as the shortest war in history, a conflict so brief, it's likely that the average tea break in London lasted longer than the entire military engagement. It was a war born out of stubbornness, colonial ambition, and a dash of melodrama, set against the backdrop of palm trees and the shimmering waters of the Indian Ocean. But beneath its almost comical brevity lies a story filled with intrigue, miscalculation, and the undeniable oddities of empire. Picture Zanzibar in the late 19th century, a lush island off the coast of East Africa, its spice-laden breezes and labyrinthine stone streets bustling with traders from Arabia, India, and Europe. Zanzibar was a prized possession, coveted for its strategic location and its lucrative clove industry. For years, the Sultanate had served as a linchpin of trade, a melting pot of cultures, and more recently, a pawn in the high-stakes game of colonial domination. By the 1890s, the British Empire had firmly established its influence over Zanzibar, turning the Sultanate into a protectorate. The arrangement was, as you might imagine, rather one-sided. The Sultan would rule, but only with the approval of the British consul, who exercised the true power behind the throne. It was a delicate dance, one that required tact, diplomacy, and above all, compliance. But in August of 1896, that fragile balance was shattered in a way that no one could have predicted. The story begins with a death. Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini, a ruler favored by the British for his willingness to cooperate, died suddenly on August 25, 1896. The official cause was listed as natural, but rumors swirled through the humid streets. Some whispered of poison, others of palace intrigue. Regardless of the cause, the Sultan's passing left a power vacuum, a vacuum that would be filled with startling speed. Enter Khalid bin Bargash, a nephew of the late Sultan, who wasted no time in seizing the palace and declaring himself the new ruler. It was a bold move, but not entirely unexpected. Khalid had long harbored ambitions for the throne, and now, with the palace gates under his control and his followers rallying to his side, he believed his moment had arrived. The British, however, had other ideas. They favored Hamoud bin Mohammed, a more pliable candidate who was conveniently waiting in the wings. To the British consul, Sir Basil Cave, Khalid's seizure of power was not just inconvenient, it was unacceptable. The terms of the protectorate were clear. No new sultan could ascend without the explicit approval of the British consul. So began a standoff that would escalate with remarkable swiftness. Sir Basil Cave sprang into action, dispatching urgent telegrams to London and summoning British warships anchored in the harbor. By dawn on August 26th, the HMS St. George, HMS Philomel, and HMIS Raccoon had their guns trained on the Sultan's palace. British Marines and sailors prepared for action, their uniforms gleaming in the early morning sun. Inside the palace, Khalid was equally busy. He fortified the grounds, amassed a force of around 2,800 men, most of them palace guards and loyalists, armed with muskets and a few antiquated cannons. He also had a small yacht, the HHS Glasgow, moored nearby, armed with a modest battery. Khalid's men dug in, determined to resist any attempt by the British to unseat their new ruler. The stage was set for an epic showdown, but the reality would prove anything but epic. At 8 a.m., Sir Basil Cave delivered an ultimatum. Khalid must step down by 9 a.m. or face the consequences. Khalid, either emboldened by his followers or convinced the British would hesitate to use force, refused to budge. The clock ticked down. The tension in the air was palpable as residents of Zanzibar watched the drama unfold from behind shuttered windows and crowded rooftops. At precisely 9:02 a.m., the British opened fire. The bombardment began with a deafening roar. Shells slammed into the palace, shattering windows, splintering walls, and sending plumes of dust and debris billowing into the sky. The Glasgow, Khalid's yacht, returned fire, albeit with little effect, before being quickly disabled and set ablaze. The palace guards, hopelessly outgunned, fired sporadically but achieved little. The chaos was swift and overwhelming. In less than 40 minutes, the palace was reduced to a smoking ruin. Khalid, realizing the hopelessness of his situation, made a desperate dash for safety. With the assistance of loyal Folis,